Right, I'm with Bob Duhamel, the President of the Planning or Environment Committee, as it's department as it's now called these days. We've been discussing the mid-term financial plan, which is out yesterday, published yesterday. I don't know when the public gets to see it, but it's going to discussion in the States October, November. And the theory is that all the grand schemes which are now doing the rounds, whether it's health, housing, social security, all these will be agreed sufficiently by October, November for the states to rubber stamp them financially. Is that basically what it's about, Bob?
Well, I hope it isn't, because that's certainly one of my major worries, and from the discussions I've been having at Council of Ministers, it's on exactly that point. I think the medium-term finance plan, in as much as it refers to very large ticket items, we need the strategic debates in the States Assembly first before we can commit to them. I've asked for an appendix to be put in to actually indicate which strategic debates we're talking about. That hasn't materialised in this current version, but before November, or when it's discussed, it'll certainly be there.
What was amazing to me was it was said that even the proposed new hospital, £300 million project, wasn't even referred to in this plan.
It's referred to, but not in any great detail. There are two very large expenditure items, the hospital project and the liquid waste strategy, which is refurbishment of Balazan and the sewage system. Both those items are mega millions. And
you're the planning minister. I can't imagine them proceeding with either of those projects without your participation and agreement.
Involvement, put it that way. Yeah, I think it's absolutely right, because in both areas these subjects kind of stray into the remit of the Minister for Environment. So I am entitled to have a point of view, and I'll certainly be expressing it.
In fact, when you look around, it's very few items which actually bypass the planning system in some way, shape or form, whether it's environmental issues.
I think you can take that view, yes, and it's not just this minister kind of with an eye to taking over the world.
And what was also very significant today, because you're a very small budget department, it was visible that you were aggrieved that you were being squeezed financially. You've got obligations under the existing island plan, not agreed many months ago. You can't carry out those obligations because you're not funded.
No, that's right. A lot of people don't realise that a lot of the funding comes by raising fees and charges, and if indeed the island thinks that the work that's undertaken by the planning department is valuable, then there has to be a funding stream to pay for it. In the past, it has been through charges. If indeed those charges can't go up because of other economic considerations, then indeed a greater sum of money has to be found from the centre in order to pay for those services, in my view.
Already the most expensive fees in the world, as far as anybody was aware today.
Well, I think all these things are relative, and maybe the world's a smaller place than we think.
Another concern was being expressed was the fact that if you have very high planning fees, they're not very helpful to the bottom end of the housing market.
No, they're probably not, but I think what's more important is the Minister's ability and the opportunities that the job remit brings to me in order to ensure that affordable housing is actually properly provided. I think that's more important. That's the bigger picture. And if I can achieve the provision of affordable homes, and I think I can do it given a fair wind, then indeed the charges structures for fees and things will fall into the background.
The enormity of the housing needs of this island, obviously that works in conjunction with what is the existing housing department. The housing department, according to the plans, will cease to exist after this year. It'll be much controlled by several different departments, but mostly the Chief Minister's department over population and things like this, the Housing Association. So unless there's a fairly dramatic move before November, we shan't have a clear view of how houses in the cheaper end might be provided at all.
I've got a consultation paper just about to hit the street, so to speak, and the closing date will be the 30th September. So I'm hoping to have everything in place so that we can have a states debate to settle these issues once and for all come the autumn.
Will that include my favourite group, the people without non-qualifications?
Certainly will do, yeah.
And they will be properly housed? within the foreseeable future?
Absolutely.
In our lifetime?
Yeah, fair shares for all.
Another area which was of great concern today was that there were quite major items under the island plan which wasn't agreed all that long ago by the states. You haven't got funding for. What will happen to those aspects of the island plan?
Well, I've got the wrong metaphor, but it's a make to amend policy by and large. I mean, we're being squeezed, there's no doubt about it, in terms of the monies that we've got within the department. So we'll just have to find more radical ways of stretching the budget in order to ensure that those work streams are properly undertaken as far as possible.
The strange thing was, under the comprehensive spending review, you've met the target that Senator Roseff has wished upon you, and yet you're still being squeezed further. I couldn't quite grasp why they were doing that to you.
I don't know, probably to make an example of us, because we've certainly made an example of them. Out of all the departments, I think the Planning and Environment Department have offered up the most in savings. But it does kind of cross my mind that perhaps that wasn't the smart thing to do by my predecessors. And we just have to live with it, I'm afraid.
Your predecessor, Senator Cohen, when I used to hear him at scrutiny, was very keen to reduce the planning office. Its staffing, building inspectors were going to be privatised, even planning was going to be privatised. Largely, they were going to work just to a framework, and that was going to be privatised. It was basically going to be a photocopying machine and an IT machine up there, and that was going to be about all of it. It wouldn't be up there at all, it was going to be farmed out to some other office somewhere else. They're still talking about moving it, but reducing it to that sort of degree? Is that what's proposed?
No, not at all, and that's new to me. I wasn't aware that Senator Cohen was that keen to get rid of his own job, but maybe he was, I don't know.
Well, he was very keen on the idea of IT, and I noticed that was being referred to again, IT.
IT is somewhat different. I mean, we've actually made moves to try and streamline the process in order to cut down on the paperwork. Our filing system is absolutely appalling. It's not housed in the department. It costs a fortune to gain access. So we've moved quite a long way to put a lot of the applications, all the applications, online, and that will bring kind of benefits not only to in terms of cost, but to the people who are making the applications, because it's easier to do online.
Of course, in the world of whizzo professional offices, they've got access to IT, but poor old general public struggles a bit with the IT system, doesn't it?
Well, I think they do, but I think most people have got access to a computer these days, and certainly if it becomes apparent that there are hardships that are being caused because people are still finding themselves not able to get online to do these things, then indeed I'll have to come forward with propositions to increase the number of public places where computer facilities can be offered to those members. Well,
obviously parish halls are the key point. There would be facilities. But one of the trends in planning applications, which is not just the fees going up, is the manner of the applications themselves. There's a demand, a noticeable demand over the years. It's not just super graphics, which can only be done on computers, but also models for quite simple schemes. Very expensive models, 20, 30, 40,000 pound models, and you've got a whole room of models up at the planning office, which has cost somebody a lot of money.
Yeah, it has, and technology has actually caught up with us, and those models can actually be procured for a fraction of the cost straight off the plans. There's a new technique of printing, and it does it at a layer by layer basis, and models can be generated very, very cheaply. But that said, we're not moving in the model direction anymore. By and large, what we're doing is going for the 3D model, which gives you kind of a photographic representation of your scheme, and you just slip it into the relevant section of the plan.
Of course, I know Inigo Jones did build the old architectural model, but he mostly worked with a pencil, or Christopher Wren, all these guys, they worked with a pencil, quite adequate. Best architecture in the world produced with a pencil, is it?
Well, times change.
The October-November deadline, it was flagging up today, even more so than I'd thought over the past few months, how unrealistic it is for Senator Roseff to be gathering together all these huge schemes which are being discussed at the moment? And
well, I think that's clearly not what this document is going to do. And I think the fundamental thing is that if that is the case, then all states members must be fully apprised of that notion.
You also raised a bit towards the end of the meeting about departments now getting funding for one project but using it for something else which the old states would never have allowed. That was a great concern.
I think that's an area of potential difficulty. I mean, if indeed the States Assembly still has a function, and it really depends on who you speak to, and perhaps we're going to sort that out as part of the electoral review and what have you, then surely those functions must be to agree or disagree the long-term strategic direction of particular departments, out of which come the spending plans. It shouldn't just be done by the Minister, in my view, and it really needs many sets of eyes and hands to deal with it.
Also was noticeable today, just the final thing, that you had a former chief officer, now Deputy Young, asking most of the questions, and to a large extent you had the existing chief officer, Mr. Skate, I believe his name is, of the Planning Office, answering a great deal of the questions. I mean, obviously there's a certain strange relationship there, it's within, but why isn't it just the Minister who just answers all the questions? In parliamentary question time, it's just the person who's involved answers the questions. We don't call their civil servants in, do they?
No, well, I think the chief executive is the accounting officer, the chief accounting officer. I mean, a lot of ministers don't really have the powers to say yay or nay for the particular funding applications or the payment of individual checks. We don't do that. We deal with policy, we deal with strategy, and it's absolutely right in my mind that the civil service deal with the financial issues.
And pertaining to the relationship with the Council of Ministers, one certainly got the impression you might be actually not just holding your tongue but biting your tongue today.
Well, I think that's always the case. I mean, there's a lot that could be said, and that isn't always said, but as long as the scrutiny panel get the drift, then there are areas of further discussion that can take place, and they will certainly follow up.
Do you think scrutiny is working better now?
I don't think it is, really. No, I think we're on a slippery slope towards the ministers taking over and running everything, which is fundamentally wrong.
Yes, you could say that. Thank you much indeed.
Thank you.